Good evening and welcome to this January 20th edition of Beyond the Headlines. My name is Colin Dowe and I will serve as the facilitator of this evening's conversation. We're delving into the economic climate in Grenada. That will be the discussion point. But let me just start off as I usually do. Thank you so very much for sharing part of your Monday evening with us. So whether you're at home looking at GBN television or listening to GBN radio on any of our social media platforms, thank you for having us be a part of this Monday evening. And it is my pleasure to have, I would say, former senator, rather than give all his present titles, but former business representative in the Senate, Christopher Diali, with me this evening. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Colin. Pleasure to be here. Albeit a little on the late side, but I'm happy to be here to discuss with you the business climate and what we see.
Absolute pleasure to have you here with us. And let's just jump straight into it. What is your overall impression of the Grenadian economy?
I would say for 2024, I would describe it as being stable. Stable from the point of view, when we did a half-year review with government indicated that the GDP would have grown by about between 3 and 4% this year, a little on the conservative side. And of course, the leading sectors would be tourism, construction, education services, primarily. Agriculture have faltered, manufacturing is a straight line in terms of no major growth. But, and of course, we had the demise of the renegade rum, which would have caused some impact on the manufacturing side. So I will describe it as relatively stable economically. We haven't seen no major shifts in any particular area. The government seemed to have maintained the cash flow issues and no major, apart from some contractors not being paid or late on being made payment in 2024. And outside of that, I would say the climate continues to be relatively stable and no major upturn for 2024.
Right. But if you are just to reflect and you have to say that there was some positive area economically in 2024, and we have to bear in mind there was also Beryl.
Yes.
But you know, if you have to say there's some positive coming out of 2024, what would that be? What area would it be?
Well, I would have to say on the road and the implementation of the Molineux project and the completion of that in 2024, which was long outstanding, has been a major positive. Outside of that, it's hard. I mean, Grenada have won good awards on the tourism side internationally, so that seems to be relatively stable and growing and getting better. So that is a positive sign. Construction continues to be a major issue because when you see what happened at Six Senses completing 2024 and Intercontinental very much advanced as a major project. The stadium one is one that is still under some scrutiny, but those major projects have kept us going. So I would say from my point of view, that's the positive side that I've seen for 2024. I think the implementation rate for the government projects have been relatively slow. A lot of schools started completing, not fully completed and completed in 2025, refurbishment and rebuilding and so on, which is again a positive thing. So yeah, I would say that if you were to take it on the construction side, there have been some moves, but I think the implementation rate for major projects by the government is still not in a good place. You know, we wanted it. We had a ministry, MIT, Ministry of Implementation and Technology, and I believe on that front, they're still, in my view, and I could be wrong, probably in the 60s or 70s of implementation.
Okay. Let's just zero in on construction and share with us, how does construction permeate through the economy? I mean, you know, whenever we look at rebounding or rebuilding, we say construction. If there is construction actively ongoing, the economy will do well. But how does it really permeate into the economy?
I think the real issue here is that it provides employment at all levels. And you see that happening. So the spend, people have the ability to spend better in the economy and get activity in the economy once the construction sector is doing well. Albeit it's a short-term fix because it's not a productive sector. Right. And once the project's complete, then it ends to a certain degree. So you have to always have projects coming and going. Major projects, the housing projects in Grenada is still very buoyant. A lot of people are still building. The banks are still lending, and the credit union movement. So we are seeing activity there still. It hasn't stymied and it has continued to grow. So that is positive. And of course, all the outlets, the retail outlets that deal with hardware material will show positive signs of that. So yes, once construction is doing well and is active, it permeates all sectors, and man right down to the labor is being employed. Of course, we have a major issue still, efficiency in construction and work ethic, which is really terrible and is very difficult now.
So are we truly seeing this? So in principle, as you said, there are major projects that are ongoing. We are rebuilding Carriacou and Petit Martinique, and the housing is likewise. But are we actually seeing the impact of this boom in construction on the ground, as it were, within the common man's families, his earnings, his spend, and therefore that translates into the village shops and the other small entrepreneurs?
I am concerned, Colin, that we have a labor issue. We have a lot of guys who are not willing to work as we would like them to. And they're interested in the money but not the work. So if you bring a guy on a construction site and you said you need him to start and give him 8 to 4:30, that is almost impossible now in construction sites. And guys will tell you, and they come to start at 8 o'clock, that are their breakfast, and they stop early for lunch, and then they complete early by 3:30, some of them dressing to leave. So you don't get a full day's work. What that does, it increases the cost for the projects. And as such, we see that those who are willing would get the money, but those who are not, go and lime on the blocks. And we've seen that happening really and truly in a big way in Grenada. Construction people will tell you, agriculture sector people will tell you that the hardest issue in Grenada is to get labor. As a result, there are going to be many push by these projects and other persons in the private sector to bring in labor, whether it's from Venezuela, whether it's from Haiti, wherever they choose to go, to assist with the problem, because our people just are not showing the kind of productivity and efficiencies in work that we need them to do.
So is it quite, well, you seem to be saying one of work ethic, as opposed to, or maybe alongside, skills. And from what I'm hearing, there is an active turnover. So you hire, but you can't keep the people employed. And if everyone is only getting 6 days, there isn't really true enrichment by participating in these projects.
That is correct. And a lot of the Grenadian guys walk off the project after a week or 2 weeks or a fortnight, because when you get to a site with the bigger contractors, they have their work well organized. So if we lay in blocks and we want 500 blocks today, and they have everything set up and so on, our Grenadian workers may give them 200 or 250, and then if you drive them hard, they say you're a slave driver, and they quit and they go and lime on the blocks. Because I always say one of the issues we face in this country, eating food is not linked to working.
Right.
You could go and get a breadfruit, you could go and fish by the sea, you go eat. And if you travel up on the western side, other side, you see pots on the side of the road cooking every day. Most of these guys not working. They could get fig, they could get blogger, they could get ground provisions, and food functioning.
Okay. And so that's a blessing and a curse, is what you're just saying.
Obviously.
Do we really have verifiable data on our economic performance? I mean, if you are to reflect on 2024, you see that the economy grew by X amount, one. And two, are those economic indicators truly representative of our work? And by this I'm going, the numbers that we see, do they really capture employment and productivity?
Well, government normally will do a half-year review of the economy and indicate which sectors did well. In the half-year review, the income from taxes in most, or if not all, of the categories performed well for the first 6 months. That is a reflection of greater economic activity, because once you have that, then your cross-border collections of taxes and internally with VAT will perform well. Excuse me. And then payment of land and house tax would have been good in terms of compliance. So the first half-year report on various aspects of the economy, both from a revenue standpoint and expenditure standpoint, showed positive. I think we had a recurrent surplus in the half-year review. So that shows that there is good management, good collection of the revenues. And as such, that's why they predicted a 3 to 4% growth in GDP coming to the end of the year. We haven't heard the last half of the year and how that performed and what is happening there. Of course, we had the effect of Beryl and how that will put some damper on the economy in terms of the productive sector and agriculture. What is able to revive nutmegs in a mess. I have just told this evening that the Nutmeg Association is offering an increase in prices for nutmeg, but we don't have nutmegs because of what happened in the northern part of the country.
Right.
So it is a challenge there, and then of course you know what's going on with cocoa. Cocoa is still struggling to come back on top. So that's agriculture. So agriculture have not done too well. Fisheries continue to be relatively stable. So the leading sectors, as we discussed earlier, is still construction, education services, and tourism, which are all performing well. And I'm told in recent figures that the intake for SGU is going to be at least 1,100-1,200 for the semester coming, which is a good thing, in addition to what is happening. So SGU have, they impact GDP in the 20s, whether it's 20-24% and so on. So when SGU is doing well, certain sectors of the economy, retail is doing well, supermarkets and so on and so forth. Rentals are doing well and so on. So the extent of their services, of that service industry, filters through the economy significantly. So to answer your question, yes, we have seen some, as I said initially, some stabilization, and we're hoping that we could continue in that trend as we go into 2025.
I sometimes worry that these measures don't necessarily capture the informal economy. And I get you, because VAT is a consumption tax. So if there's a greater collection there, it would seem to suggest that the informal economy likewise is doing well. How can we better capture what's taking place? I mean, we drive up, let's use the western side for example, and you see people on the side of the road. They are defined as not working, but they're eating. And when there's a big event, a show, etc., they're present. So where are they getting their monies in order to put it correct?
Yeah, and I mean, the informal side of the economy, remember, has to include the barrel trade.
Right.
And that is significant in the sense that a lot of trade takes place based on what comes in on the barrels, And of course, we have the normal huckster trade. You could gauge the huckster trade through customs and how much is brought in and what kind of addition they make to customs duties and so on, because they charge accordingly. So yes, you could gauge that in that sense. Of course, the barrel trade thing is a more difficult one. And then of course we have monies that are sent to individual homes from abroad.
So the Western Union, MoneyGrams and those.
MoneyGrams, which are doing relatively well in terms of their transactions. So you have to say that spending power comes from those areas. And then of course, when you look at what is happening in the financial sector, the banks and the non-banking areas, credit unions and so on, they are relatively strong and stable. So it means that they are getting deposits, they are lending money, so most of them are reporting good profits, which is through management of their non-productive loan portfolio and what is happening. So people have money to spend, and the risks appears to be relatively low in the lending area. So encapsulate all of that, and when you take that into consideration, we do have persons having spending power, but not really from productive sectors in our economy. It's coming in from outside through remittances and of course barrel trade and so on and so forth. So that is significant. I don't think we have ever, in my recollection, been able to seriously quantify how those things contribute to the GDP, but we know it does. The other side of it too, Colin, is that fiscally, in terms of taxes, we haven't seen any announcement by the government of an increase or movement, so it gives you a certain amount of predictability. So a man could go to the bank and say, listen, I don't think I'm going to have any significant change in my income because the taxes are remaining relatively stable. I'm not sure how long they're going to be because the IRD put out new valuations. They announced
property taxes,
increased valuations in 2024, last quarter in 2024. And the question becomes, if they don't move the rate and they're using that as a base, your property tax goes up.
Correct.
So they could say the rate stays stable, but if they increase more value, are gone up. And in some cases, it is significant.
Yes.
So let us see what 2025 budget reading brings.
Just before I step off of this and get into the budget, what can we do to, I'm going to use an oxymoron now, formalize the informal economy so that we can capture it better, that we can, as a country, bring forward infrastructure to better support those who are participating in these small industries?
Right. I have one idea that I floated a few years ago, and I floated it recently when we did a workshop dealing with how to take security over intangible assets, so like inventory and so on. And there's a big project going on now on putting in and making adjustments to various acts to facilitate that. My take is that, in the informal economy are registered business names, some of them. We need to get them to do financial records and accounts, financial statements. You could steer it at different rates. So a company like mine, where we at that level will do fully audited accounts because we have to account to our shareholders and other things. But as you drop down on the scale, a man who have a pepper business, bottling pepper, and probably revenues is 300,000, between 300 and 500,000, you give him a different accounting statement. But you get them to understand that they must prepare, show their revenues, show their expenses, and so on. And then, if we put that enact that in the tax law, then the issue is you must present something, because it not only helps on the government side to understand that industry, but it also helps the person to understand if the business they're doing is doing well, and then if they want further financing for expansion and they go to the banks, they have records to show to the bank. Listen, this is what we have been doing. We may have a little issue here, we're looking to remedy, but just operating day to day like that with some of them don't even have an exercise book or a current account. You're not really clear on how well this business is doing. Are
you making money or are you not making money? If you're making money on what? Because quite often you're doing more than one thing. What is your profit center? What are the loss leaders? You really have no clue.
Cash is not profit.
And cash is not profit.
So, I mean, those basic things for those small and medium and micro business, I think needs to be captured in the tax law, where they make it mandatory that based on the size, we do our accountant statement, we do our unaudited, fully audited, and tier it across. So for them, it doesn't cost them a lot of money. So some of us who on full audited statements may pay $20,000 for a full audit. At that level, they may pay $500 for accounting statement. Right? And so it is affordable, but it gets them to understand the business better. And then government gets to understand that we have this amount of micro businesses. Here we could help, here we cannot, and this is what they bring into the economy. So one amendment, in my view, to start the process.
What are some of the key infrastructural things you would like to see that will be able to assist the private sector, whether we're talking now big business or the small business? What are some of the key things? Because government is there to facilitate economic growth, all right? What are some of the key things you'd want to see implemented?
Let me start with IT, because I think that is a critical one. There are two areas I want to comment on IT. Data protection is a significant one in terms of hacking and what people could do and sell your data and do all kind of thing with blocking your data and so on. So I think how we deal with cybersecurity is going to be serious for small countries like us. The other thing is, when we look at what's happening, and the example was Beryl, then when these systems come through and hit us, and we know we won't get hit again. It's not as we have to get a different mode of using and getting and having communication. Starlink is a new thing now, which is using satellites only, and that has become a lot more affordable. It cannot be cable, as we know, through the current providers of comms, and that is something that I think needs to be addressed and addressed quickly on the IT side. Those two particular areas. It gives us resilience, and it keeps us open on things that's happening out there, and and if we have a system or something pass through and there's a disaster, then we could still operate, and not everything shuts down. And then if we move into energy and what is happening on energy in terms of, do we have resilience? Do we have PV systems with battery backup? So in my business, do I have panels on my roof with batteries? So if we're like out for 2 months, 3 months, could I still operate because I have battery support? These are the little things that I believe needs to be married together in terms of the IT and the energy to understand how we could better operate in situations like that if it happens. So.
What are some of the things from the business sector standpoint that are important to building resilience? So one of the things that you mentioned, of course, is the solar panels and with storage, right? Because, hold on, before we go there, there was an arrangement where people could put their generated electricity through solar onto the grid and a buyback system. That formal arrangement seemed to have been on pause. I don't know, there are new people recent times coming on because there was supposed to be some discussion on what revised rates would look like. Has that been resolved? And
no, because I mean, for the commercial sector, if I want to put panels on my roof for ACGL, I'm only allowed 60% take back as credit. The rest, even though I put panels and I sell it to the grid as an independent power producer, you're not sure exactly what it is you're getting back in terms of when you sell and the different levels and all of that is going to happen. So it is still a gray area. Those of us with homes that have PV and we sell to the grid, it used to be almost a one-to-one. Now that has changed.
Right.
So again, we're not seeing getting a clear understanding what is happening there. So our system for energy and support in terms of using solar is still very blurry from a PERC point of view and from the major producer.
But isn't PERC supposed to be leading in terms of the regulatory framework, what these arrangements should look like? And they seem, I don't want to say silent, but again, you're saying still blurry, which means that there isn't a strategic plan that has been communicated as to how, whether it's private sector or homes in terms of individuals, how is this going to be managed?
Yeah, and you see PERC, when you looked at the original act under PERC, they weren't sure if they're a regulatory authority or both, regulatory and dealing with... And
PERC, by the way, is the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission.
Right. And they're supposed to be a regulatory commission, but they were delving into areas of standards for bringing in certain equipment, panels and so forth and so on. So they need clarification on that. And so we need some serious understanding of the regulations under the PERC Act and amendment to the PERC Act. I am told that it is being reviewed and regulations should come out sometime, I'm hoping, in 2025. Because for me as an investor and a private sector investor, I would not put up thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in panel on a system, a PV system, if I'm not sure what it is I want to do.
Right.
You understand? And what is the rules around it? So that is one on the infrastructure side. In terms of road networks, I think we are relatively okay. We challenge, of course, in always fixing and I think we need to do a total repair of the Granans route. Now what is happening there, the roads have, over the years, based on the size of the trucks that are operating on these roads, they were not designed for it, so the roads are breaking, they're sinking, and constantly having holes. So I think we need to do a complete road repair system for Grandans, especially from St. George's to True Blue, including the airport, Morris Bishop Highway.
Prime Minister did announce that is coming. But of course, there is a need to wait because you have the UK SIF project that with Nawasa, and if we're going to be laying pipes from town of St. George south towards the airport, then you don't want to do roads, and then you have to.
No, but Colin, that is why we have to wait. That both organizations could come together and work jointly,
right?
So that
I think that, and I believe that's the principle. So when it happens all at once, rather than trying to fix the road today.
Correct.
And the like, right?
We could do that. I don't think it's a waiting. It's about bringing the two organizations together and they plan.
Right.
I think they're doing that now with the project from bringing new pipes down to the on the St. Andrews side
Right.
to facilitate better water production. Digging up the road, but they're going to be redoing that road.
Right.
So NASA is laying the pipes now, and so on. And then when they come to redo and resurface the road, everything is complete.
Right.
So I mean that happening now on the St. Andrews system, where they're using the GCF funds to relay lines and increase storage. So I think that is something that we could do. So
Right.
from an infrastructure point of view, again, the roads is one, and I mean in a small island like Grenada, we have plenty road.
Right.
It's not easy for a government. I'm assuming that it will be easy. And then you have agriculture feeder roads in the back that need work, and because guys will tell you in the agricultural sector they can't get the produce out as they ought to,
Right.
because there's not enough infrastructure in roads. And feeder roads for agriculture has always been an ongoing thing and constantly redoing and so on. So that our IT infrastructure in the country, I think, is relatively good, even with the two operators that we have. So that is, from a business point of view, there is not much complaint about that, except, as I said, about the resilience aspect. And so, yeah, I don't think our labor laws is something that we're going to have to touch, because I see amendments being proposed that is the private sector is not happy about. We didn't think that the consultation was enough. And when you look at the amendments being proposed, it's primarily to assist in employee benefits more than private sector. So again, it's shifted to one side more than the other.
And you say that basically will lead to increased operational costs.
Of course.
And then that will translate into our pockets as citizens.
Correct. And remember, NIS just went up.
Right.
Right? If we get NHI to come in 2025, because I'm told the contract for the original persons were terminated, so we starting over again, and NHI is a significant on the health sector.
Well, I'll come to that. I'll certainly come to that. So let's take our first break.
Yeah.
Viewers and listeners, we'll take our first break, and we'll be right back delving into examining the business climate in Grenada. See you shortly.
Grenadians, the National Celebrations Committee invites you to celebrate the next 50, embracing a future of development, transformation, and unity as we ready ourselves to mark the Grenada's 51st anniversary of independence. On February 7th, 2025, activities include the Independence Monarch Competition semifinals, January 25th at Lassaget's Playing Field, with the final carded for Saturday, February 1st at the Sutters Bus Terminal. National Church Service, February 2nd, 3 p.m., Crossview RC Church. February 6th, National Colors Day, Interministerial Competition and Independence Cultural Extravaganza from 7 p.m. at the Grenfell Bus Terminal. And on Friday, 7th, it's the grand finale at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium, the Independence Day Rally, Military Parade, and Made in Grenada Expo. Let's all celebrate in true Grenadian unity, the anniversary of our 51st independence.
Grenada is such a beautiful country.
Get so much more with Courts Ready Finance. Whether it's a furniture upgrade or appliance replacement, it's easy when you shop using Courts Ready Finance. Get more flexibility by choosing your payment terms, more affordability with low monthly payments, and more access with fast and easy application. Plus, there's no down payment and you make your first payment in 30 days. Get great deals and gifts with select purchase. Get so much more with Courts Ready Finance. Only at Courts. Bringing value home. Special conditions apply.
Unlocking opportunities, Excel leads the way in digital advancement every single day. Fair internet access for all to share. Transparent billing with consumer care. Excel 3EC bill safeguarding our rights. Net neutrality, consumer protection shining bright. Mobile number portability available to you. Switch providers seamlessly. Keep your number true. Excel 3EC bill promoting fair play in the digital world. Every single day, affordable services are important for all. Through the EC bill, there'll be progress overall. Ectel and the NTRCs connecting our communities.
Ectel and the NTRCs, digitally transforming our space together.
Are you ready for the ultimate culinary showdown? GBN presents Oil Down Fest. Oil Down Fest. Oil Down Fest 2025. Who will be crowned the Oil Down King or Queen? Compete to win in exciting categories like the most creative presentation and People's Choice. Mark your calendars. Saturday, February 1st, 2025. And join us in celebrating Grenada's 51st Independence Anniversary in style. Call or WhatsApp 473-407-8458 to register. Don't wait. Spots are filling up fast. This one-of-a-kind festival will feature electrifying music from Hot FM's top DJs, vibrant craft exhibitions, and captivating performances by local artists. Don't miss the tastiest and most exciting event of the year, GBN's Oil Down Fest 2025. Saturday, February 1st.
The oil down, they look real good, enough.
Proudly supported by Flow.
Welcome back, viewers and listeners, and we are examining the business climate here in Grenada with former Senator for Business, Christopher Diali. Chris, you were mentioning just before we left off, actually, we were speaking about the infrastructure that you'd like to see to support the private sector. You on the IT side, things like the cybersecurity as well as resilient infrastructure, and you went into some other areas. But let me ask you just on energy, and because we spoke about this. Are we truly preparing ourselves to be resilient on the energy side? I know that there have been some movements by government on concessions for EVs, hybrid vehicles. But then if you have to power up your EV, you have to use a fossil fuel energy source to power it up. I mean, is it just Mama Guy?
Well, I mean, if you could invest in PV panels for your house and you're going to EV, you're good. You don't have to use fossil fuels. But, it is, we in a kind of, you do or you don't do. So the government has been very good and positive in giving concessions for promoting EVs and going in that direction, which is good. But here we are now with discussions on the blocks of oil and gas that we're supposed to have. Oil and gas commercially exploitable based on what we have been told in little tidbits. We heard that the Nigerians got involved with the Russians on some agreement to exploit the blocks that they have. So here the country is faced in going down the oil and gas route and then pushing the EV route for green climate, greener climate and all of that and CO2 emissions. So we need to have an understanding of where the balance is going to be.
Right. I
see we must exploit what we have and whatever arrangement is done for that. But at the same time, do we balance it with EVs? I am certain, Colin, for 2024, we had more than 3,000 vehicles imported into Grenada. Right? Used and new. And the issue is, first of all, where we parking? We parking all on the side of the road. We just doing
No, not on the side of the road. We're parking in the road.
In the road.
Because in the lane, there's no shoulder on our roads. So when you stop, you're blocking the drain and part of the road.
Molineux, I'm told, is down to single lane traffic already because everybody parking in the road on one side and single lane. We had the same thing with Laborie when they did over the road. So we have issues with those things and what we do, so that we need to understand what are we going to do in that situation, because we are reactive people. It's until a fire engine can't pass in a house burning down, everybody in the house die or something like that, some major tragedy. We want to not know the vehicles are parking on the road. And the law says you can't park on the road. So we had to come up with a solution. That is one. But the energy thing is worrying as well, because the last government and this government holding all the information to their chest. We, the public, don't really know what the strategy is, where we're going, what we want to do, and how we're going to do it. And no government has given us the opportunity to discuss that. You hear committees being formed, committees changing around, and it's only about on the periphery or something. Well, boy, this is where we think in the Russian sign agreement to the Nigeria.
But there's been no public announcement from a Grenada standpoint outside of what we read out of Nigeria as to what is happening with those oil blocks that should be within our waters.
And we had a lot of discussions in the previous government with Trinidad and what arrangement we could develop in order to exploit. We know what is going on with Suriname and Guyana and the major oil finds that they have. How could we benefit from natural gas if we could from them and work out an arrangement? Because if we move our production of electricity from heavy diesel into natural gas,
Yes, right.
we get an immediate benefit in terms of the cost and the efficiencies and so on. So the only thing Grenada would then have to worry about is the T&D transmission and distribution lines and how they could better improve that for losses. But you're just not understanding where we're going. And quite frankly, I think it's disrespectful, because here it is, we as a population in the last 10, 15 years have not really been told what it is we have in energy and how it could benefit the country or not. We know hearing about, we're looking at wave energy, geothermal. I mean, and here we have oil and gas. Trinidad have all the technology and the expertise, and now we're going into geothermal. I mean, it's disappointing to say the least.
Okay. How do we juxtapose as well? Because there is an announcement that we're going to be doing a solar farm in the vicinity of the airport. I believe there's some tenders out for that. The airport, like the other adjoining properties, use huge amounts of electricity. If we are to encourage solar farms, it means that they're coming off the grid some. What would that mean for the rest of the population who would then have to spend, because infrastructure has not changed, meaning Grenada's infrastructure. But if we have these major players reducing their public consumption of energy, it means somebody has to pay the piper.
Yeah, and I don't think Grenada will be put into a position of financial difficulty. Grenada then will have to change and upgrade the distribution network and not make it heavily dependent on how they do it as now. So there's opportunity for them to improve in terms of efficiency on transmission and distribution. Then, as I say, if we were to change one 5-megawatt generator from heavy diesel to natural gas, the savings will be significant to the average man. So it gives them an opportunity, if these guys come off the grid, to look in that direction and see how they could better fix the production from these heavy diesel into natural gas, for example. So I don't think they will lose. They will have to be an adjustment period. And in any case, if those larger consumers through the solar farm switches to the solar farm, then Grenada, as it stands now, I don't think the law will give them 100% switch over. Right? They will have to come with a 60% or something of a percentage, so it gives Grenada time to build and react to what is going to happen. So the formulas are wrong in how we can do it. But it is the way to go. I mean, I could tell you from my own experience, I did my house in PV panels and have battery backup, and it's the best thing I ever do since sliced bread.
Excellent.
What I used to pay Grenada is zero now. And the issue is my recovery of the capital spend, and which, when you look at it, in between 5 to 10 years you recover. The lifetime on these panels is 25 years. Of course, the inverters may be at 10 years, so you might have to look at that. But I don't think you could go wrong, because we are sun 365 days of the year. Not like New York and Canada that suffer in winter. So I mean, for us, and there is even the issue of wind. And what is happening in wind. We do have a lot of wind based on where you're staying, and the wind technology has improved significantly. So I think there is no discussion that we should go solar or alternative energy, but we now have to balance it with what is happening in that ocean there with natural gas and oil is commercially exploitable, and how the country could benefit from that as we go forward. I don't know if you want to use a Guyana formula and increase salaries and give people money.
But eventually, hopefully, we get there once we start benefiting. But as you said, we need to plan, and we need to know what the plan is. We're sitting here on the 20th of January, and unlike previous years, we have not yet heard the budget for 2025. Any idea as to why that may have been?
Well, when I did the throne speech, two things stood out to me. The fact that the budget was going to be delayed, and the second thing is that the throne speech in terms of vision and details on sectors that they're going to look at was very vague. This is the first throne speech that had very little detail in my view. I've listened to quite a few. But in terms of what the Prime Minister have announced recently, I think, or the Minister of Finance, is that they're going for a supplementary budget of $400 million, probably in the next sitting of Parliament, to help them meet their costs for the first quarter. Remember, legally, you can't spend unless it goes through Parliament and the money goes through Parliament for approval. Right. They have salaries to pay, they have other things to meet in terms of costs, recurrent costs and so on. So it is appropriate. To me, the disadvantage here is that based on the rules, the financial rules, I don't know if it's a FRA or one of them, that you could only go for 2 supplementals in a year. If you take one so early, it limits what you could do for the rest of the year. You only have one left, unless we have a disaster. So there is that constraint, and then the question will be, why are we so late? Didn't we have consultations? Didn't we know what the strategy is, where we're going, which sectors we're going to take? You get a sense that because we're so late, something is not or did not happen as it ought to. I don't know if it's lack of experience, but this government is 2 years going. We did more.
Well, the public officers have been there, and they're the ones that will prepare the data.
That's right. And I mean, so there's a whole budget department. So the question, it raises these unsettling questions about why we're taking so long. Unless there is areas of looking at funding, you don't want to do a deficit budget, where the revenues are coming from. So I suppose those are some of the challenges and the questions that will raise your head. For us in the private sector, of course, we want to see fiscal stability. We don't want to see increases in taxes when it comes to corporation tax, VAT, and all of that. We want predictability so we can plan, because we have to plan 2 years ahead and understand what is happening there. The government will tell you costs is going up and they need to bring in more revenue and come with an argument why they need to increase certain taxes. We will argue that, use volume instead of rate, and let's see how we can get it. Increase compliance instead of rate, and let's see if we can get the same revenues. And in government, when you're doing budgets, there's a principle called revenue neutrality. If you drop a particular tax type, you have to tell me where I'm getting it back. So I maintain the revenue at the same level or increasing it. So I don't know, all of those things may be affected, the delay and what is happening. So, I mean, that is my only thoughts on it, Colin. I don't know. I mean, for us in the private sector, we want to see stability. Probably lower taxes in corporation and other things, and government will tell you I can't touch that because you have to tell me where I get the rest. So keep it stable, for us at least. Property tax is going to be one. The government of Trinidad a few years ago tried to increase property tax, particularly on businesses, and it failed. It was a terrible disaster, and then of course the private homes would have borne some of the increases. So they have to be careful how they do that as well, because you tell a man that own a property in St. George's that the value is $100,000, and now it's $300,000, and his tax is going to be based on that, a significant increase. So these are things I think they have to balance and strategize how is the best way and what they do.
Okay, let's take some look at some sectors. As you alluded to early on, the tourism sector, from all reports, have been doing well. The reports from the GTA, both in terms of awards and everything else, we have been doing well there. Are we maximizing on the tourism product that we have? What are some areas that you would advise that we have additional investments or relook how we position it so we can maximize on the revenues we generate?
I think there's a principle in tourism called less is more, and I like that, in the sense that high-end properties like the Six Senses that was completed, the Intercontinental, and some of the others that may come off, You know, high quality, high end works well for us because we're small. We're unique in the sense that what we offer in terms of our warmth and what we're doing now with some of the sites and the upgrades, I think speaks well to the product and what is happening with the product. And we've seen the results. Stayover arrivals have increased. Our flights into the country are consistent in terms of Virgin, BA, American Airlines, and JetBlue, and so on. That seems to be on a consistent schedule in terms of the amount coming in per week. And that is something that, you know, and how Grenada is being promoted now, excuse me, Pro Grenada is one of the things that we certainly can improve and do better in some of the areas we market and do niche marketing that is unique to us, as we have done in Carnival and Jab Jab and so on, which is unique to us. And these are the things I think that needs to be worked on. I think the tourism department, GTA, is doing an excellent job, and the staff.
It's twofold here, because while there is a department or officer dealing with product development within the GTA, one will argue that their primary responsibility is the marketing of Grenada and Grenada's product. And I get the product part in the piece of marketing, but as Grenadians and as businesses, we also have a responsibility for product development. The GTA can advise, the GTA can promote internationally, but that actual product belongs to us as Grenadians in order for us to ensure that we're able to commercialize it. What areas do you believe are begging or full of opportunity in the tourism product that we can exploit further?
Well, let me take two. First off, the carnage. I think the carnage begging to be revamped, you know, and make it like, you know, ships, the luxury yachts come in and change the whole, do a new wall, a new walk, everything, and make all the boats, the island boats, move to a different location, which was a project discussed years ago.
But there was a January 31st, 2024 deadline for the fishing trawlers. They have increased in number between then and now.
Yeah, and you know, we need to move it. Carnage is too much of a beautiful area, and we could change the business and make it, you know, more accommodating. You pull up your boat, your posh yacht, and you go on the side and you have wine or coffee, you know, change, and that's a project that have been discussed quite a number of years. So let's start there. The carnage, I think, is going to spend us millions of dollars to do over the wall, but the wall now is so bad that it must be done. You understand? So in any case, it had to be done. So let's do one nice project and make that run. So that's one. And then I don't want to underestimate what the value of CBI does to market our island internationally to high asset, high income, high asset people. And these people will bring a certain type of clientele to the country. So when one of these posh yachts pull up at Port Louis, they will spend thousands of dollars just in wines and flowers, because that's what they want and that's what they want to see and so on. So here is an opportunity for flower people to expand and understand that business and what that impacts the business from a touristic point of view. Because we have very special anthurium lilies here and so on.
And we've been at the point on occasions where we had to import flowers because our horticulturists were not able to provide what the clients wanted.
So, you know, probably the agriculture need to start looking at that, instead of looking at traditional things like banana and so on, and see what is the opportunities here as a suggestion. So these are areas that I think from a tourism point of view, two areas, the CBI and its approach with the marketing to these high net worth people, and of course what we need to do on the carnage.
All right.
You know, I think that will change what we do in general in tourism.
Going to the CBI, is there vibrant conversations between the GIDC, the Grenada Investment Development Corporation, and now renamed the IMA, the Investment Migration Agency, as to what we want in Grenada? Do we have and should we move to a schedule of goods and services by the GIDC saying this is what we want, and hence when you go out as an agency and you're looking for buy-in, this is where we need our money spent to foster Grenada's development?
Let's take CBI. I think CBI need to move away from tourism projects. Not totally. You will always have need there for some projects. But we need to see if CBI could support sports, particularly football. could we get investors in the CBI program that could give monies to our national team to keep them and build them to a level that they can compete internationally? That's significant. If you don't have money for sports, for example, karate and athletics and so on, is it something that CBI could look at and look into? I think they can. Let's choose agriculture. Is it something that CBI could facilitate as well? Agro-processing. We have struggled with agro-processing over the years. Probably we need a different approach and see what can be happening there. Can CBI assist with education services? I think they can. And how we modernize. We want to get our children to operate in smart classrooms. I heard St. John's Christian Secondary Shaper had, I think, was let's say 20 classrooms, and they have 17 already completed as smart classrooms. Excellent. That's the way we had to go. Our children come to school with an iPad, not this heavy bag of books, and get the full understanding of the education. Could CBI assist with that? I think they can. So I say that to say CBI has been doing well for us. We need to change or tinker it a little to go into sectors that we really need help. Right. You understand? And not only tourism alone. Could we attract investors in these areas? And I think we could. It's how we market it, of course. And what is out there? You have such billionaires like Elon Musk and these fellas that little money for us in a little area in PV or EV or something. Put a set of public transport in EV, Elon Musk might give us the thing free. And you get a tax write-off. In other words, could we come with 5 or 10 projects and get 5 or 10 of these high net worth people that are citizens of Grenada through CBI and put these projects through the Prime Minister and say, this is the help we want. It's peanuts for them based on the cost. But the strategy must be a little different, so that CBI not only looks as a money-making thing that can help with infrastructure and other things and budget support, but it can show to our people that there are actual projects that CBI would have been engaged in and we could benefit from it. And not just this generation, but generations to come. And I think that is what needs to be a little remodeling, of course, with all the other aspects of efficiency. But those are areas that I think we need to, because when CBI was formulated, there were particular target sectors that was given, tourism being one, IT being one, and so on. We need to relook that, I think.
Okay. How would the harmonization of the rules governing investment migration within the OECS and certainly the type of agreements that we propose to sign on to, I don't believe we're implementing as yet, how will that impact our industry, one? And two, are we losing our competitive advantage and hence we'll see a downturn in revenues?
I don't think so from the competitive side. I think our program for CBI and GIDC, once they harmonize where we want to go in terms of sectors, now what we want to offer, we will always be a country that will have to offer some concessions to attract the kind of investment. But of course it must be done within a certain realm and understanding of certain issues. But I think we could, if we look at the sectors and harmonize. I don't think we'll be less competitive. The region as a whole need to get their act in order on a CBI thing, as we see what's happening now in St. Kitts and Antigua and so on. The larger countries, the European Union, the Canada and the US, all have CBI programs.
Correct.
But in different values, and they're big, and they tell themselves, now that they're seeing some of the money shifting to us, they're kind of worried and they're trying to put all kind of stumbling blocks. But high net worth people, you can't tell them where to move their money, no matter what. And that is an understanding that we need to get so that we could attract them and continue doing what we're doing.
If we are to have these types of investments in productive areas, because that's where we're looking at so that generations to come can benefit, we need more people. How do we go about strategizing to grow our population smartly? And what triggered it, of course, you asked about Canada, and I know that they have an excellent program in growing their population. How can we go about growing our population smartly so we not only have additional consumers, but certainly the skills to fuel the type of productivity we need?
Colin, you know, since I was in Parliament almost 15 years, and I've always spoken about this, our most consistent export has been our people. I am sure we have more than 140,000, 150,000 Grenadians living in the diaspora. whether it be on the in the European side, England, Canada, and the US. Our population last census was, I think, 105 or 115.
We have not moved from the 1970 census to now. Basically, that's it.
Correct.
Right.
So where are the people going? We're graduating 2,000, 3,000 students a year on average in the school system. Where they're going? So we have been exporting our people. If we understand that it's a consistent thing, then how do we change it to do two things? Make it a productive sector for us, or make it attractive to bring in people into our country in a particular sectors and a certain level of qualification. So let me explain. Nurses have been a problem, leaving our system. Every time we graduate nurses, a lot of them go because we're paying them well, conditions and right. Okay, my thing is, okay, fine. If we bring in 100 nurses in the school system, in the nursing program, 50 is for export and 50 for here. And then we work at a program. Those who want my 50, you have to pay, give them opportunities when they get there, but you have to pay me for them too. Right, and let's make it a commercial.
Because there's a cost to train them.
Correct.
Right.
And to keep those that stay, I had to improve their conditions. So whatever money you give me for those who go in, will help facilitate those that stay and make them benefit from what is being done. Then there is the issue of how do we attract more people into our country. I believe our population has to go to 150,000 for it to make economic sense. You open a coffee shop in Grand Anse, you can't last for long with a few people drinking coffee. You understand? They're running into trouble. So the issue is volume. What makes Barbados different from us, Trinidad different from us, is people and their population sizes. So it is something we have to do in a structured way. You know, criminals don't need structure to move. They're moving without structure. But those who qualified, in particular, medicine is one, healthcare is one. When we see all Cubans come to Grenada and contribute to the health sector in a positive way, can we look at countries in Venezuela where language is Spanish, but we could accommodate that because everybody's speaking some language now. Spanish is the easier one. Could we move 10,000 Venezuelans in particular areas where we need assistance? And I'm not limiting it to professionals. I'm talking on skilled and skilled people in terms of masons, carpenters. Could we set up an immigration program that will attract these people and give them the sort of benefits they could get by moving here? I think that needs to be done and done quickly because it is going to limit our country's development for the next, I don't know, next 20, 50 years if we don't address the population issue. And our ladies are not making the children fast enough to even deal with our social security system.
No, hold on. Let me stop you there. I think you're being unfair to the ladies. I would have you apologize on national television, but I think it's time for another break. So let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll go into some rapid fire before closing. So we'll be right back.
Grenadians, the National Celebrations Committee invites you to celebrate the next 50, embracing a future of development, transformation, and unity as we ready ourselves to mark the Grenada's 51st anniversary of independence. On February 7th, 2025, activities include the Independence Monarch Competition semifinals, January 25th at Lassages Playing Field, with the final carded for Saturday, February 1st at the Sutters Bus Terminal. National Church Service, February 2nd, 3 p.m., Crossroad RC Church. February 6th, National Colors Day, Interministerial Competition and Independence Cultural Extravaganza from 7 p.m. at the Grenfell Bus Terminal. And on Friday, 7th, it's the grand finale at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium, the Independence Day Rally, Military Parade, and Made in Grenada Expo. Let's all celebrate in true Grenadian unity, the anniversary of our 51st independence.
Grenada is such a beautiful country.
Get so much more with Courts Ready Finance, whether it's a furniture upgrade or appliance replacement. It's easy when you shop using Courts Ready Finance. Get more flexibility by choosing your payment terms, more affordability with low monthly payments, and more access with fast and easy application. Plus, there's no down payment and you make your first payment in 30 days. Get great deals and gifts with select purchase. Get so much more with Courts Ready Finance, only at Courts, bringing value home. Special conditions apply.
Unlocking opportunities, Excel leads the way in digital advancement every single day. Fair internet access for all to share. Transparent billing with consumer care. Excel 360 bill safeguarding our rights. Net neutrality, consumer protection shining bright. Mobile number portability available to you. Switch providers seamlessly. Keep the number true. Excel 360 bill promoting fair play in the digital world. Every single day, affordable services are important for all. Through the EC bill, there'll be progress overall.
Excel and the NTRCs connecting our communities. Excel and the NTRCs digitally transforming our space together.
Are you ready for the ultimate culinary showdown? GBN presents Oil Down Fest. Oil Down Fest. Oil Down Fest 2025. Who will be crowned the Oil Down King or Queen? Compete to win in exciting categories like the most creative presentation and People's Choice. Mark your calendars. Saturday, February 1st, 2025. And join us in celebrating Grenada's 51st Independence Anniversary in style. Call or WhatsApp 473-407-8458 to register. Don't wait. Spots are filling up fast. This one-of-a-kind festival will feature electrifying music from Hot FM's top DJs, vibrant craft exhibitions, and captivating performances by local artists. Don't miss the tastiest and most exciting event of the year, GBN's Oil Down Fest 2025. Saturday, February 1st.
Oh, they look real good, enough.
Proudly supported by Flow.
Viewers and listeners, we are examining the business climate here in Grenada with Mr. Christopher Diali. Chris, before we left off, we were talking about growing the population and the challenges to that, and how can we, in a structured manner, grow, both in terms of numbers and skills, because you need a volume, but you also need skills. What is the birth rate in Grenada now?
Well, I mean, my information could be wrong. I want to put that caveat there, but I'm told it's less than 1.
Okay.
Right, so I mean, in our parents' days, you know, the norm was 10 and 12 children, boys and girls. Now we down to 1 plus a little bit, 1.1 or whatever. So it is not significant. So we can't depend on that, that's for sure.
Right.
And our women are far more independent, far more educated now, and they find better ways to how they balance their time between family and career. So absolutely nothing wrong with that. But in that context, for business activity, you need volume. And for volume, you need a structured approach. I mean, Barbados have started that. Myanmar, we have announced that is where she's going to build Barbados population even stronger than it is now. So she understands what's happening. Canada is doing us.
Guyana actually likewise.
Yes. You know, so people and having people for business activity is crucial. And that is, we need to find a way to deal with it.
Agriculture, you alluded to some of the things that we can do in agriculture, but just share with us, how can we build an agricultural sector that makes sense? You said that we probably may have to move away from the traditional planting of bananas. You know, these don't pull up in Grenada as they did
you know, when you see what has happened to us with these systems that have gone through with nutmeg, cocoa, bananas, well, we don't do much bananas anymore. If you're doing bananas, mainly for local consumption. the question has to be asked in a hard way. Can we really continue dealing with nutmegs and cocoa as we do? And do we need to have a change in what we do? I don't want us to move away from spices, cinnamon, clove, and all of that. But the resilience of those crops to those systems is showing that, you know, if a nutmeg takes 7 years to get in full bloom, could we do genetic engineering to keep the quality but do it in 2 years? That would encourage farmers to go back.
Right.
They can't wait 7 years. So I'm talking about finding a way to marry the technology to deal with pest and control, and of course how we could get these main crops, cocoa and banana, to maintain the quality but give us production in shorter periods of time.
Right.
Something we have to look at. Again, the major issue in agriculture is labor. We don't have people who want to work in agriculture. They come to work 6, 7 in the morning, by 10 they finish when the sun gets hot, and they want a full day's pay. We cannot continue so in agriculture because we need people to reap, we need people to plant, we need people to service pest and control and what we need to do there so that we could be productive. So the question becomes, do we go in greenhouses? What do we do in the greenhouses? What can we do in greenhouses? But greenhouses are limiting you to certain types of vegetable crops. It can't be the long-term big tree crops.
Where are we though in terms of secondary production as well? There are quite a number of chocolate factories, about 5 if not more, in Grenada. I know Noelville was challenged when Dennis Noel passed away, but our secondary production in terms of nutmeg, that took a hit getting back on stream there. This should be areas that we're looking at as well.
Yeah, because, you know, you can't ask a farmer, look at beryl. I know of farms plant 250 nutmeg trees, about to call. They just start to call. Beryl pass on the flat after 4 or 5 years. So the question becomes, and then remember with nutmegs, we're still using planting tree at a time to hope one is a female. Right? And reduce the odds. But we need to use the technology to get past that. That's what I'm saying. And we move away from distillation. We need to get back in those secondary processes if we could get the raw material back on track. So there's still room, but we need to do it differently, and that's what I'm talking about. Young people would never get into agriculture
in the traditional way.
In the traditional way.
Right.
Bending your back and picking up nutmegs, you can't put a net to collect the nutmegs, they won't go into it. And same thing, that's why we have so much chocolate factories. Because the secondary processing is the money maker, the agro part of it. So why not expand that philosophy to other areas? I think we're doing relatively well in vegetable production. We're not consistent in terms of production and quality. Again, we could correct that with greenhouses. Tomatoes, sweet peppers, leaves, the various lettuce leaves, and so on. That is in high demand from farm to table. Is something that we encourage in greenhouses and get it structured and organized, and there is room for that.
And even if it reduces the import bill, we win. I wouldn't tell you how much for a head of romaine lettuce.
Yeah, $40. Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, there is room, and if our young people realize it's not bending back, you have tables up to you in a greenhouse, you control the conditions, you don't have to worry if the dry season long or short, if you're getting too much rain when you fall now, look how you control it. And that is what we need to be and where we need to be.
MNIB was wound up, as it were. We haven't had a replacement yet. What are your thoughts?
You sure it was wound up?
Well, there was an arm operating, but, you know, we need a redefinition of what the functioning of an MNIB or MNIB-like organization.
Well, I must state that I was one of the chairmen, so I may be biased in my comments to MNIB. From the standpoint, I think it is a necessary organization. And my evidence for saying that is, when we had COVID, if it wasn't for marketing board, farmers would not have had any place to put their products. And we get it out to you know, the homes and the police and so on and so forth. So just using that as an example, I think there's a role for MNIB. How we structure MNIB is where the challenge is. MNIB cannot exist on vegetable and buying stuff from farmers only, soap and whatever. It must have some other revenue, hence the sugar and the milk and the rice part of MNIB. So again, even though we keep that to a certain degree, in Grenada we consume a lot of sugar, I can tell you that. And it's amazing how much containers of sugar we bring in. That needs to be structured with what we do with farmers. And I think, and I believe, I know there's a role for marketing board. We just need to structure it better. And I don't know if selling portions of it, there are parts of it we closed down when I was there because it wasn't operating and profitable. And yes, you need to restructure in that sense. But what was announced by the government when they came in, when they saw the liabilities surrounding M&IB, I don't think was given enough time and thought before we said what we said.
Okay. Quick thoughts. Poultry.
Excellent area for investment. The issue with poultry is feed and disease control. I think we have a number of poultry farmers in Grenada now that is doing well and has the possibility to grow. And Grenadians, in terms of taste, they will tell you that fresh chicken better than the thing that in the refrigerator for months.
Honey.
Again, that is a good one, Colin. I know the guys in honey are having challenges now with disease and so on. And, we're cutting down a lot of the trees and so forth, so with homes, and there's not enough place to get nectar. So that is an area we need to look at. What tremendous opportunity. I don't think we ever solved the problem with Grenada, honey, and Trinidad. So that is a sore thumb. But, yes, honey has really good potential if we could get it to go as we want to go.
Are we ever going to develop a meaningful cannabis industry, in your opinion? I know there's talk.
A lot of talk. I think we can, but I think there's a lot of areas to overcome. There's a lot of examples in the Caribbean. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Jamaica, we have St. Vincent to some degree. So the biggest challenge, I think, is going to be regulatory control. We just put a lot of laws and a lot of regulations in place, but we don't enforce. And that, to me, is going to be the challenge in that industry. You can do tremendous things with the oils and all the different medicinal aspects, and that is not a challenge. What is the control on the other aspects that is going to be the challenge for us, I think.
Okay. Viewers and callers, you certainly can weigh in your thoughts as we examine the business climate. 440-1252. That's the telephone number to join us. Chris, health tourism, or, well, we talk about replacement hospital, etc. Will we see movements in 2025 on this one?
I don't know. NHI seems to be at a standstill. I don't think our people could seriously access good medical care without an NHI system in place. That is one. And then, of course, how we structure and how we do our current hospital. I know they had brought in some people, Mount Sinai people, to take a look at what needs to be done. But in the end, Colin, regardless of what you do, we have to pay for medicine. If you want good technology, a simple blood work, and the hospital don't have reagents because we're charging $40 when we should charge $100. We have to learn to pay. And hence the reason for NHI, to assist the people that will not be able to afford what they need to afford, but at least give them a chance.
Okay. We have our first caller online. Good evening, caller. Welcome. Go ahead, please. And remember, you listen and speak through the telephone, not listening to your television or radio. Well, it seems as though that caller would have to call back. Yeah, so NHI has been on the table since, 2011 or 2012. It has crosses now 3 administrations, 2 NDC, 2 NNP, and we still don't have NHI.
And we hear that the last people contract has been terminated. So you're not, hopefully the budget will address it to some degree. But we need it. It must go in conjunction with whatever medical facility we build. And I want to say this, I don't think Grenada has to offer everything.
Right.
So you may say cancer treatment. Probably Barbados may be better suited for cancer treatment based on the level of development and where they are now. So why can't we partner with them to do certain cancer treatments? That cancer is a real plague in this society.
Antigua actually has an excellent oncology center, so they actually beat us to the punch on that one.
So we know OECS. Let us structure an arrangement between us, and if we have somebody here, we send them up there.
Okay. Another caller online. Good evening, caller. Welcome. Go ahead, caller.
Caller, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We are hearing you quite clearly. Listen through your telephone, please, and not the radio or television. Go ahead. We'll have the caller call back. I want to move quickly on to transportation and how important that is for the development of our country. Now, public transportation. Comments?
Oh yeah, critical. Businesses will depend on the level of efficiency in the transport sector. Our transport sector is dominated by private enterprises, and I believe we need to have a public transport service running alongside them. It happens in Trinidad, it happens in all the islands, where private owners run alongside public. I think the government announced they want to start a project, was it in December? No, I think it has been pushed back for school children.
Yes.
And use public transport.
The Spice bus.
Right. And that, I don't know when that is going to come now, but we have to wait and see. But I think that is the way we have to go. Because after a certain hour in the night, you can't get transport in Grenada to move publicly to anyway. So we need to have a transport system that operates at least till 12 in the night.
Okay.
You know?
We have another caller online. Good evening, caller. Welcome. Good evening, caller.
Go ahead, caller.
Go ahead.
Yes, please, caller. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes. I love to listen to these two brilliant PBC boys. the school that produced 4 out of the 7 prime ministers of Grenada. Where do you place the entertainment industry and the creative industry in the whole gamut of things?
I think there is great potential for the creative industry. We have talented people in Grenada, whether it's in dance, music, or art. And I think, and even books, writing of poems and so on, there's great talent. And I think this government needs to be commended. Thank you, caller, for reminding me that the creative sector and the creative industry is something that is important. However, I think it takes time to develop. And I use Jamaica as an example. Jamaica is known as the country of reggae, done by primarily Bob Marley and all his other colleagues in that industry. That took some years to develop and mature. So in our
But there was an investment, because if you remember in the 1960s, when everything related to the music industry became duty-free, which means that the ordinary man could have, when I was in Jamaica, late 1980s, a record was, what, $6 Jamaican. Right, so it was affordable to bring to market.
And that's the point. It takes a time to get the talent where we are. I mean, when you look at Calypso and where Calypso was 20 years ago and where it is now, we have significantly made some leaps and jumps. But now is to commercialize it and get it to a point where we can market a certain amount and get it in. You know, you have reggae artists getting awards internationally, and it's not Oscar, it's Grammys.
Grammys.
We need to get one of our people there so that the industry, we could show what we're doing.
Okay.
So that is my only comment there. So entertainment, of course, goes hand in hand with the creative industry. And but in Grenada, again, when we come back to the economics, you can't open a discotheque or a restaurant with entertainment and expect to operate 3-4 days a week.
Correct. We have another caller. So good evening, caller. Welcome.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm happy to hear the views from Mr. Diali. Very interesting. It tells me, of course, that Mr. Diali is certainly in line that there are many, many things in this here country that we need to rethink. Very many. The question is, Mr. Diali, do you have any proposals on how we can do this rethink? Obviously, in my view, the politicians cannot do it. They're not capacitated because the way they think are clearly against the interests of the Grenadian people. I believe that is the people that have to do it. How do we do it, therefore, with the people? Mr. Diali, I don't know if you have ever thought of the concept or theory of the Constituent Assembly, where peoples come together, discuss matters at all levels, create new futures that way, through new constitutions, etc. Have you ever thought of it that way, so we can, in a general way, with all the involvement of the people through the elected representatives, of course, reconstruct the future of this country? Do you have any views on that, sir? For what it's worth. Thank you very much.
I think, you know, When I hear that, it reminds me a little about local government.
And that is exactly the thought that came to mind, as well, and the petri dish that is Karakou, because local government is instituted for Karakou in terms of our constitution.
I think we face two challenges with our people and that concept, Caller. The first one is that our people don't like to sit down in no room for no length of time to discuss anything productive, unless they have food to eat and rum to drink. So that is a thing we have to overcome. And I say that in general. When you call certain consultations or certain important thing, or last thing was the Constitution and how we may change it, people wasn't attending because they didn't see and didn't have an interest in that kind of discourse. That's the first one. The second one is the cost of what you were suggesting there from a constituency level and how we manage that. And that is what, remember we had local government in Gary's time, Prime Minister Gary. So it disbanded, in my understanding and looking at the history, because of the cost to operate local government and what was involved. So that is something we have to also understand how we're going to balance with what we currently have in our system. And do we do it in phases or based on certain aspects and certain constituency, what needs to be handled as a priority and how we get the people involved. Because once the people, one thing you can say about our revolution when we had it, Maurice Bishop had a unique way of mobilizing people in every community. If he say he want to paint a bridge and he asks for 40 people, he get 100. And we must get back to that sense of level of understanding of what we can do for our country when we get up and look at ourselves in the mirror and not what the country could do for us. And I think if we have that conceptual adjustment, Caller, what you're suggesting is something that could certainly be experimented and worked on.
Okay. Another caller online. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Why, caller?
Hi. Am I online?
Yes, you are.
Hello.
Go ahead, please, caller.
Okay, I could barely hear, but I hope that you are hearing me. Yes, good night, gentlemen. Very interesting discourse. From what you said in the earlier stages, we have a serious problem of human resource. You know, the saying that our people are our most important resource is not a joke. It's a very serious saying. And Grenada, at this point in time, I would say we would plunder for lack of people. We're not hearing much about unemployment now, but we're hearing of unemployable people, especially our young men. And that's a serious problem. Now, how would we get over that? We may think of it quickly, looking for quick fixes of bringing folks in. You bring them in, then there are problems with that, social problems. When there is a downturn, how do you take care of the needs of all those people you brought in? Because the economy has a little dip, or there is some sort of external shock, and we're left with those people to take care of them. Housing and the whole life, education and a lot. It's a serious problem. You mentioned, and for instance, labor is an important part of development.
Caller, if you can come to your question, please, because we're limited in terms of time.
There is no way we can grow the economy or reach our potential. Now, the matter of the IMA, I agree that it has to be refocused. It has to look at other sectors, and it also has to find a way of incorporating local players, bringing in partners to work with local players to develop the sector that we think we need to develop. But I think, you explained there is a sort of confusion between the Transformation Fund and the IMA. We can't just take investors' money and do things with it. We have to channel them to investments that we are interested in. And part of it, of course, is the Transformation Fund, which we can use. But I think there was some sort of slight confusion there, because we cannot take investors' money. We have to encourage them to invest in the areas we choose.
Thank you very much for that, caller, and the point is well made. The idea of local investors, and really and truly, we probably, and that's what early on, we're speaking of the GIDC, having projects in order for the investors to invest in. So the idea there can be local, even if we don't have the capital, and we get that type of partnership.
Remember, we were doing that through agro-industry for years, local investors, and bringing in partners from people outside with technology and expertise. And that still didn't work for probably reasons of raw material and so forth and so on. And there are various reasons why we could cite. But I think that is another sector that needs to be reformulated in a different way. But just to tell you, the National Transformation Fund of CBI is part and parcel of, I don't think there's a conflict. When investors come and they offer the project and the marketing agents go out and say we're marketing this project, they invest in the project, and part of the money is you could either take on investment or invest money to get a passport and citizenship, and it goes to the NTF. The NTF is used for recurrent projects, infrastructure development, bridges, etc., etc. So again, is where government's priority wants to be and what they want to do. But I agree with the caller that, this government came in on a transformative agenda, and the issue is, as of this point, what transformative have been done in Grenada, either from a people context or from other contexts. And transformation has to start with the individual. I always believe that. Hence the reason I said you have to look in the mirror and see what you're doing for your country today. It's as simple as that. If we don't get that shift, I don't know if we'll get any sort of transformation.
So transformation is people-centered and not necessarily a
As the caller indicated, our most important asset is our people.
Right.
In business, it's the same thing.
Financial sector, are they doing enough to fuel the development of private enterprise? Would they liquid? Are they on the lending at a rate, meaning both speed and interest rate, that can assist with the development?
I think so. The average mortgage rate in Grenada came in from 12% to around 6-7% now, or thereabout. So interest rates have dropped. The financial sector have been relatively stable. Because remember, you can't have shocks in your financial sector. It undermines the economy generally. So I think they have done a good job. The challenges they face with IT, because a lot of people say they want more facilities, put it on your phone, and more digital facilities, but with that comes risks of hacking and so on, and the cost with that in the back end is significant. So when they see fees going up, they quarrel, but you asking for certain services, ATMs and so on. And I always challenge the fact that you move a lot of things to ATM, so you move people from inside the bank and tell us to go to the ATM. But when payday comes and so on, more people stand up in the rain outside and coming inside because of the ATM. So there has to be a balance. But generally, I think the financial sector have done a good job. ECCB have seen and done a good, kept a good control over the banking sector and even in the non-bank sector as well.
Well, the controls over credit union, and they are growing because they're as big as banks at this particular point. Do we have the controls that we need? Are we comfortable with the investments that they are making with people's monies?
I have always said the biggest challenge for the non-bank sector is the compliance issue. What is done for the banking sector is far more rigid than the credit union, but we're looking to harmonize that, and ECCB is looking to harmonize that, because the more the non-bank sector go into more commercial lending, they have to get the compliance policies up and to the point, to the standard that is required, so that it doesn't put risk into the system. So that is one of the challenges, of course, for them. But I think generally we have done well. The credit union movement has grown to $1 billion industry right here in Grenada in terms of assets. So it is something that needs to be properly controlled, and compliance and the risk to the customers is reduced as much as they can.
Chat with us a little bit about the minimum wage was increased in January 2024. There was lots of confusion that everything will go up and people get fired, etc., etc. Did we see that type of negative fallout?
Well, I don't know if things have gone up. What I will say is that some people have lost income. So I cite an example here. If you have an ailing mother or father or grandmother and they needed somebody to take care of them, and they had let's say two people at least, where the minimum wage, I think, moving to $1,500 as a livable wage, the person couldn't afford it, so one had to go, right? And you can't break the law and say, well, boss, I'll accept my $800 or $900, You can't take the risk as a homeowner or the person in control. So you have seen some of that. But my fundamental thing with minimum wage is that I don't think we should categorize minimum wage anymore. I think that's a waste of time. We need to have a minimum wage set for the country. That is the minimum wage you can employ somebody regardless of the profession. And then you structure you leave the structure of what you pay somebody based on their skill level. So if I bring in a carpenter that is grade C versus grade A, where grade A is the better one, I have a minimum wage, whether you're a carpenter or not. The minimum wage in the country is, say, $60 a day. But if you're a grade A carpenter, obviously I can't pay you at $60.
Right.
I have to pay you at $100 or whatever. So I think that is what we should have done. I think the way we went about it is archaic, and we need to change that. In advanced economies in the world, there's a minimum wage total. That's it. And then you grade people based on their skill level.
We had a Pension Reform Act that recently passed. What are your thoughts in this, and do you see the private sector buying into this type of retirement savings plan as opposed to only depending on the NIS?
Most private sector companies have they pay NIS by law, of course, and they have their own private pension arrangement. So that is not an issue with the private sector. Most of us have that who could afford.
That's the larger companies, but not necessarily your small, medium, and
right. But we have to get adjusted to the concept of contributing. The 100% pension arrangement is no longer viable, and the labor movement most times, I think, doesn't sell it right, because when you tell an employee put 3% and I go match it to 3%, the employee then answers and say, but when I give you my 3%, my salary drop in. So I need an increase of 4%. That is not what pension is about. Pension is a savings. So if I put 3% now and I invest it properly, interest over the time, by the time I'm ready to retire, I have something to live by. And that's how it must be sold.
Right.
But we don't. And 100% doesn't work anymore. Companies can't afford it. And then if you contribute, then you have a right to the money that you're putting in that sense.
Okay. 2025, where do we anticipate growth coming from?
Well, I want to believe it has to be the same sectors we mentioned: tourism, construction, and education services. CBI is going to contribute some. I believe, I would hope and pray that we could do something better in agriculture, that we could see some growth in agriculture. Fisheries is holding its own.
Right.
But fisheries have their challenges. The guys will tell you they have to go out further now to get the fish catch that they want. Of course, climatic change is going to influence significantly any policies we look to develop as we move ahead. So that has to be filtered into whatever we do. Tourism being one major one. So how climatic changes is going to affect that. So we must, in any policy development, have consideration for climatic conditions, how those changes will affect what we do, and the kind of, slides and with extreme water falling in an hour, what can we do to the country. So all of that has to be factored in now, I think, in a more serious way for us to make this step. Our Prime Minister, I remember at his 50th anniversary presentation, spoke of what he'd like to see in the next 50 years and where we need to move.
The Vision 75.
Vision 75, which I thought was an excellent discussion. But for us to get Vision 75, a couple of things that we've done. We as a people need to adjust our attitude, and we have to do policies that will get us to a point where we could protect
what would you like to see by way of human resource development budgeted for, focused on 2025?
Well, you could always say start with the education system. I don't think that is rocket science, in the sense we have always spent a lot of money in education and what we do there. I think we as a people need to engage ourselves like we're doing here now, even at the rum shop level, have discussions of how we as a people could change our thinking. I mean, a simple thing as garbage. I went on Grandlands Beach Sunday to walk. The garbage bin, to put the garbage, is 10, 15 feet away, and they leave all the garbage on the beach.
Right.
Something will have to be wrong with us and how we think. I use that as a simple example, and that's some of the things that we have to change.
Okay. Let me do one curveball as we close off. We heard today of the resignation of Peter David, who is the Member of Parliament for the town of St. George, from the New National Party, not as MP, but from the New National Party. How do you believe that will impact the climate, political, and of course, political climate impacts economic climate moving forward?
Well, I mean, I think that may have been expected to some degree after what went on in the convention and what was alleged and so on with Peter David. What I would like to understand, though, I don't think Peter David, based on the person that I know him to be, will forsake his constituency and continue to fight whatever. It will limit what he could get, of course. The NNP wouldn't give him no help financially for anything, and he can't go to NEC as well. He could, but it's what he don't get. So it puts limitations. But of course, you have to ask yourself the question where he is thinking politically as an individual, what he wants to do and where he wants to go. So that is still up in air and what is going to happen there. But I think it was something that is expected. The other thing is, I don't know if Dr. Mitchell is going to appoint a new leader of the opposition. He has a new leader of the party.
Right.
And if that leader of the party constitutionally has the support of the opposition MPs, then he needs to appoint as the leader of the opposition.
Well, I don't know he appoints. It's the MPs decide who the leader of the opposition will be.
That's right.
And none of them seem to be making any moves. Well, sorry, they have not moved to change.
That's it. So those are little things that we need to see how they pan out.
Okay.
With your curveball.
I give you the opportunity for any closing comments as we project into 25.
I hope that 2025 will be a year where we could further build and grow. I think there are sectors that need real help, like agriculture and so on, that could productively help us. And if the government continues, it's a young government, young people, and they have done well, in my view, in stabilizing and continuing projects. If we could see them do some transformative things, because that is what they came in on. I don't think I've seen any major transformation except paying people every fortnight. But we need to see something more tangible in terms of the transformative agenda, and hopefully it starts in 2025.
Okay. Christopher Diali, my friend and brother, thank you so very much for joining us. And to you, ladies and gentlemen, for giving up your part of your Monday evening. We certainly don't take it for granted that you will be with us. So thank you for being with us this evening. And I certainly look forward to being with you again in the next 6 days, 22 hours. Take good care.